Title: Whispers in the Forgotten Manor. The night was unnervingly still, heavier than any silence she had ever experienced, pressing down upon Emma as she walked the narrow, cracked path that led to the forgotten manor at the edge of the forest, a building whose silhouette loomed like a jagged scar against the pale light of the waning moon. Windows darkened like empty sockets, and as she stepped onto the cobblestones, a chill wind whispered through the skeletal branches, carrying faint, almost human murmurs that seemed to echo her name, a sound that made her heart stutter and her hands tremble, drawing her forward, despite the icy prickle crawling along her spine and the warning instinct that told her to turn back. Yet some invisible force, a curiosity mingled with fear, urged her onward, and when she reached the massive, rotting oak doors, warped by decades of neglect, they groaned a slow protest, hinges shrieking like the screams of the damned, yet she pushed against them, splinters biting into her palms, the wood giving way with an echoing crack, revealing a foyer shrouded in darkness, dust hanging like fog in the air, and the smell hit her instantly. A mixture of mold, rot, and faint iron, as if blood had seeped into the very walls over centuries, and each step she took echoed unnaturally, bouncing back at her with sinister intent, as if the house itself were mocking her, and portraits lining the hallway seemed to stare, faces of long-dead ancestors whose eyes glittered in the dim light, mouths frozen in silent screams, and she noticed the faint, almost imperceptible pulse of the walls, a vibration that resonated in her chest, syncing subtly with her heartbeat, and the floorboards beneath her feet creaked under her weight, groaning like the bones of the dead, while shadows shifted along the walls, twisting independently of her candle, stretching into humanoid forms, elongating, reaching, vanishing just before she could glimpse the full figure, and a low hum began to fill the space, rising in pitch and intensity, vibrating through her body, making her skin crawl and her teeth chatter. And as she proceeded deeper into the manor, she realized the walls were inscribed with strange, archaic symbols, some etched centuries ago, others freshly carved, pulsing faintly, alive with a sinister energy. And every so often, she heard the faintest whisper of a voice, almost human, almost pleading, sometimes calling her name, sometimes uttering commands. Stay, stay, join us. And with each step, the whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices overlapping, some mocking, some desperate, some cruel, and she felt memories of her own life seeping into the house, mixing with the manor's own dark history, becoming one with the place. And when she stumbled upon a mirror stretching from floor to ceiling, she froze, for the reflection staring back was not entirely hers. Hollow eyes, jagged teeth, and a twisted, grotesque grin mirrored her movements, but moved independently, beckoning her, whispering secrets she had never told anyone. And as she recoiled, the air grew colder, frost forming on the candle flame, her breath visible in sharp, white puffs. And suddenly the walls shifted, bending unnaturally, hallways stretching infinitely, floors tilting impossibly, ceilings folding down, doors multiplying endlessly, each opening to a different, horrifying scene. A forest consumed by unnatural green fire, a lake of black water, reflecting countless twisted faces, a room where the floor writhed with enormous pulsating worms, each wriggling like it had consciousness, and she ran from room to room, heart hammering, every door opening to yet more impossibilities, and shadows moved faster, closer, their whispers forming coherent phrases now, telling her things about herself she could not unhear, secrets she did not know she remembered, and voices of loved ones long gone whispered from corners, distorted, accusing, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing maniacally, until she stumbled into a vast atrium where the air itself felt alive, vibrating with energy. And she realized she was not alone, that the house had eyes everywhere, ears everywhere, feeling her fear as if it were sustenance. And from the darkness emerged a tall, faceless figure, robed in black, exuding a presence so immense that the floor beneath her seemed to groan in submission. And it whispered directly into her mind, the voice, ice and fire at once, "You belong to me. You always have. You cannot leave." And the walls pulsed with laughter, the portraits of the dead seeming to lean forward, mouths moving in silent cacophony, shadows stretching along the floors and ceiling, forming grotesque shapes that twisted reality, warping her sense of space and time. And as she stumbled backward, she fell into a hallway that seemed to stretch forever, doors appearing and disappearing, each leading to darker horrors than the last. Rooms where the air burned like acid, where the walls wept black ichor, where reflections attacked her, where whispers merged into a chorus that threatened to split her mind in two, and the faceless figure glided silently behind her, never touching. Yet the air around her trembled with its intent, and she began to feel her body weakening, her consciousness fragmenting, pieces of herself slipping into the walls, merging with the house, while other fragments clung desperately, screaming silently in the void. And time became meaningless, minutes stretching into hours, hours into days, corridors folding in on themselves endlessly, the house learning her movements, adapting, molding the very structure to keep her trapped. And in moments of pause, the whispers became voices of those trapped long ago, recounting their terror, their mistakes, their endless waiting. And Emma realized, with dawning horror, that she was becoming part of the manor, one more thread woven into its eternal hunger, while the shadows and whispers became a single entity, alive, sentient, insatiable, each corridor a nerve of the living building, feeding on fear, shaping reality, devouring all hope. And yet, in the deepest parts of her mind, a fragment resisted, seeking escape, finding doors that led to more impossibilities, rooms folding into infinity, skies bleeding black and red through cracked ceilings, oceans of fire lapping at walls that twisted impossibly, forests where the trees' faces twisted in silent screams. And everywhere she looked, the faceless figure followed, floating, waiting, whispering, always whispering, "You cannot leave. You belong to me." And the candle died, plunging her into darkness punctuated only by the green glow of the walls, shadows pressing close, whispering secrets she did not wish to know, forming shapes that were part memory, part nightmare, part desire, twisted into grotesque forms. And she ran, stumbling into rooms filled with spectral faces, each screaming silently, each stretching impossibly, pulling at her mind, her sanity fracturing, pieces of herself bleeding into the walls, becoming whispers, joining the chorus, and the house pulsed in satisfaction, breathing, alive, every corridor a vein, every door a lung, every shadow a nerve, until she realized there was no end, no beginning, only this eternal, infinite nightmare. And the manor's whispers promised a single, unchanging truth: "You are mine, forever." And soon, you will forget the world outside, and this nightmare will be all that is real, and all that has ever been real, forever. And Emma's voice, once defiant, became another whisper in the walls, A new face in the mirror, a shadow in the corner, while the faceless figure observed silently, patient, eternal, the manor alive, waiting for the next curious soul. And outside, the wind remained calm, the moon weak, the forest silent. But inside, the house breathed, pulsed, and waited, its hunger eternal, its patience endless. Every creak, whisper, shadow, reflection, and heartbeat orchestrated to pull in the next visitor, just as it had pulled Emma. And as the walls pulsed, the air thick with fear, every whisper, every shadow, every reflection screamed its warning and its invitation simultaneously, promising terror, eternity, and the ultimate truth of the manor. You will never leave. You will never escape. You are part of me now. And Emma's scream was absorbed, becoming one with the house. As the corridors stretched into infinity, doors opened into more darkness. Shadows reached endlessly, and the whispers grew louder, ever patient, ever hungry, a never-ending nightmare feeding on fear, despair, and curiosity. And in that infinite moment, she realized there was no escape, no beginning, no end, only the eternal living horror of the forgotten manor, pulsing, breathing, whispering, waiting. Emma's consciousness had become a fractured, trembling thing, each fragment slipping into the dark, pulsing walls of the manor as the faceless figure glided silently behind her, and the corridors twisted endlessly, folding in impossible ways, the floors rising and falling like the chest of some massive sleeping beast, ceilings stretching into infinite darkness, and each step she took echoed with the screams of those who had come before, some whispers now clearly forming words. You are ours. You cannot leave. Stay. And the air thickened, pressing against her skin, seeping into her lungs with every breath, carrying the scent of decay, mold, and something faintly metallic, like the taste of blood, while shadows slithered along walls and ceilings, sometimes coalescing into humanoid shapes, other times stretching impossibly long, vanishing and reappearing, watching, reaching, whispering, laughing, and she stumbled into a hall of mirrors, each reflection showing a different version of herself. One with eyes bleeding black, one with skin peeling, one crawling across the floor on all fours, grinning with impossibly sharp teeth. And they moved independently, gesturing, beckoning, whispering, some shouting in voices she recognized from her past, distorted and twisted, until she could no longer tell which image was real, which fragment of herself was genuine, and which was a hallucination conjured by the house's hunger. And as she moved, the mirrors began to crack, fissures running across their surfaces like spider webs, green light leaking from the cracks, illuminating the shadows that crept from every corner, from under doors, through ceilings, from behind the walls, and they reached for her with elongated fingers, brushing her arms, her hair, her shoulders, heavy but intangible, pulling her toward doors that led to impossible spaces. Oceans of black water where faces surfaced, screaming silently. Forests where the trees' faces contorted and moaned. Skies bleeding red and black. Cities twisted and submerged in fog. Rooms where the walls pulsed with the faces of the dead. Mouths moving without sound, and as she ran, the faceless figure whispered constantly in her mind, a voice both intimate and terrifying. You belong to me. You always have. You cannot leave. You are mine. Forever. And the longer she ran, the more the corridors folded, hallways becoming rivers of black ichor that tried to pull her under, doors disappearing and reappearing, stairs leading nowhere, ceilings collapsing into floors that rose to meet them, and every shadow seemed to have a life of its own, mocking, whispering, clawing at her mind with memories she had long buried, twisting them into grotesque parodies, turning her joys into screams, her hopes into despair, her loved ones into faceless monsters. And the whispers of past victims became clearer, layering over each other, voices of those trapped for decades, centuries, crying out for release, warning her, begging her, laughing, all merging into an overwhelming, unrelenting chorus, until she felt her mind splintering completely, fragments breaking off, absorbed into the house, merging with the walls, floors, shadows, reflections, every fragment becoming a part of the Manor's living, thinking, eternal hunger. And as she stumbled into a vast atrium, she realized that time no longer existed. Minutes stretching into hours, hours into days, the corridors folding infinitely, and every attempt to flee brought her back to the same impossible space, the same faceless figure, and the same whispers promising eternal possession. The liquid floor, rising beneath her feet, hands clawing from the ichor, pulling at her ankles, wrists, her hair, every inch devoured inch by inch, while her screams were absorbed by the walls, becoming another thread in the infinite tapestry of fear, and the mirrors shattered one by one, releasing fragments of herself, echoing in ghostly laughter. Some fragments merging with the faceless figure, some forming new shadows, some whispering endlessly through the corridors. And as she fell to her knees, exhausted, the house pulsed, alive, every creak, every whisper, every shadow a part of its consciousness, and the faceless figure extended impossibly long limbs, wrapping around her, pressing into her mind, and every memory she had tried to cling to dissolved, rewritten into nightmares she could not distinguish from reality, while the whispers chanted in unison, "You will never leave. You will never escape. You are one with us, forever." And the walls began to drip black ichor that burned on contact, the floor writhing beneath her, pulling her down. Yet at the same time, fragments of corridors rose to meet her, stairways folding back upon themselves, doors opening into infinite darkness, reflections of herself stepping out from mirrors to taunt and beckon, shadows reaching from all directions, clawing, whispering, pressing in, and in one final moment of horror, she realized she was no longer herself, that the Manor had claimed every part of her, body, mind, and soul, fragments merging with the endless victims before her. Yet, a fragment remained conscious, witnessing the eternal nightmare from within, trapped in a body that was both hers and no longer hers, and the faceless figure hovered, silent, omnipresent, whispering promises of ownership, while the Manor itself breathed, pulsed, and watched. Corridors folding, shadows moving, whispers layering, mirrors reflecting the infinite, and outside, the forest remained silent, the moon weak, the wind calm, while inside, the house pulsed in anticipation, ready for the next visitor, a new curiosity, a new scream, a new mind to consume, and Emma's whisper joined the endless chorus, another voice trapped in the infinite nightmare, a new face in the mirrors, a new shadow in the corners, a new thread in the living walls, and the house whispered eternally, "Come closer, stay forever, join us, for this is all that is, all that ever was, and all that ever will be." And in the depths of her mind, Emma realized with finality that the Manor had never needed doors, windows, or walls to trap her, for it had always existed inside her fears, inside her memories, inside her soul, and now she was truly part of it. One with the whispers, the shadows, the reflections, the endless corridors, and the house waited patiently, eternally, for the next brave or foolish soul to wander across its threshold, while the forest remained quiet, the moon weak, and the world outside unaware of the horrors contained within the living, breathing, eternal nightmare that was the Forgotten Manor.